conversation. I think some people need to be motivated.
And
the way
there's
you do it
proof,
is you
there's
starve them a
data
little bit.
across the world for millions of different topics that prove that negative incentives do not provide the outcome that positive incentives do. So a poor person who wants to go fucking get McDonald's on their way home and they haven't gotten their paycheck yet that week and they have some money left on their fucking Snap, you really want to deny them that? For what reason other than your moral standing?
Or don't fucking do it and starve, get salmonella, not my problem. But even be able to have any input on the conversation.
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you? Because why would someone who doesn't really contribute?
You're kind of struggling here, aren't you, buddy?
No. Like, some people should not be allowed to vote. If you don't own property, I don't think you should be allowed to vote.
I'm super okay with fast food because literally the McDouble is the most nutritionally dense and bountiful piece of food in the United States. Like, that's mathematically the case. Like, and I worked when I was on EBT, I was a cable guy, so I worked 4 10s, and on those days I was not cooking. Like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, I could,
that's
but
a
it was
great
just
piece out of the conversation.
Yeah, it would take from, and I try to avoid anecdotes in like legit debates, but it's like I'm with low cost fast food and hot food from grocery stores because that's the other thing that I eat a lot now that I couldn't with an EBT card because you can't go to the hot deli. You can only go to the cold deli. And it's like, it's the same thing. I'm buying a $5 sandwich versus like a $5 chicken meal, but the chicken meal has like double the calories of the sandwich I'm going to buy for the money. And your boy's trying to get thick. So it's like, let's go. We need, I want the chicken meal with the mac and cheese, but it's like, for me, I think the limitations should be changed, not removed. I think they should allow hot food up to a certain cost, and then they should disallow. I think that like candy bars and shit like that from the gas station shouldn't be, because right now, like, I used to help finance departments for convenience stores, and dude, the amount of EBT charges going through for fucking like Snickers and Abba Zabbas, bro, isn't like, it was like 30% of our candy bar sales were to EBC card holders. It was ridiculous, like a ridiculous amount.
You know, I think I'm the kind of person where I'm always geared towards trying to find some middle grounds. Like, I think in my head, if you're trying to find some kind of a compromise here, you would just say that if you receive EBT benefits, that you have to maybe like take like once a year some like fucking nutritional course provided by the state.
Dude, people hate that shit, but I love that.
You know what? People hate that shit, but if you want the benefits, then you'll do what you got to do. I mean, truthfully speaking, right?
I think education should be part of any welfare program. Education, but people get really touchy about that because like my family was helped the most when I was like a kid, by a charity, a local one around us, that literally put us in low cost housing. And instead of like money, they basically gave us really cheap rent, and then they gave us a list, and you basically checked the checkbox of a bunch of different grocery items, and then they would send you they would deliver each of those to your door. And then every week the parents were forced to go with childcare available to a financial education class. And it like,
so if you were to force feed people that education class, would you then be okay with letting them have anything they want with EBT?
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather it be done through a private lens, but I would still say EBT would have to be food.
No, that's what I meant. Just like any kind of food.
Yeah, as long as it's food, yes. But the whole no restriction direct cash payment thing, I don't agree with. But yeah, for just food, 100%.
I mean, yeah, if we're going to keep it in the scope of EBT, like the direct cash payment shit or whatever, I'm not really trying to expand into that like realm. But I think, there's no net benefit that I see of like restricting things on EBT. And like when
you don't see any benefit whatsoever.
I mean,
you can get more food. You can get more food cheaper if you buy staples such as, like, I don't know, rice, potatoes, than what you ever would buying the random quarter pounder with cheese meal and shit like that.
Okay, but why don't you factor it?
You don't see any benefit whatsoever, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I mean, I don't think that was part. I mean, I'm not sure. I think you just got in here, but that really wasn't part of the argument, whether or not like we're arguing about the cheaper.
Actually,
option.
That is the argument I started out with. Yes, I was on the panel.
He was all the way at the beginning of the panel, though.
Yeah. Okay, I understand, but I was talking about the conversation we've been having for the last 10 minutes that you just jumped into.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, you're assuming that I've been watching this for hours. But
no, it's an interesting thing, but no, it's to make a blanket statement like there's no benefit.
But what is the benefit of that? Okay, what is the benefit?
Quantity.
Quantity? Okay.
But
Quality of what? You buy your. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Independent thought. I'm sorry.
What I was going to try to say was, I don't really think that the argument that we were having was whether or not we're trying to find the most cost-effective way to help somebody. We're not really arguing about cost. We were arguing about the ethics of whether or not the government should tell you what kind of food to buy. So you might be right. Give me a second here.
Whose money?
I see you want to jump in. I see you want to jump in. So, I understand that you might be like having the ethical high ground of like, hey, we're saving you money by doing this, but we're arguing whether or not should the government have that kind of power over people. And I would assume, because I have seen you in another panel before, that a conservative like yourself would not really be okay with that.
So normally I'm not okay with that, but since this is a government grant to actually combat specific things,
well, a grant,
it's just like
that it actually has no restrictions.
No, grants always have restrictions. Grants always have restrictions.
Not a loan has a restriction, but a grant doesn't.
Grants do have restrictions. So one of the best modern day type examples, considering the pandemic and whatnot, is actually grants to pharmaceuticals. They get awarded money to develop some drug. If they misuse that money, then they can be held liable for fraud. It's a common thing. And look,
that does exist currently. The question was whether or not it should exist.
Yes, it should, because if you're going to give taxpayer money with intent to someone, you should do something to ensure that intent is followed.
Okay, let me just follow up on this really quickly here before we get off of point here.
Okay.
When if you were below a certain income level, you're going to receive a tax.
I've received SNAP and EBT. I understand how all this works.
Okay, well, you didn't hear what I said, so obviously you don't understand what I'm saying. I said if you are at a certain income level, you receive a tax return. So do you believe that the government should tell people how to spend their tax returns also?
No, because tax return is just a return on your own money.
Is it though?
Yes.
Because sometimes you get more.
Yes, and that you're talking about people with child credit and stuff. Yes, that does happen.
There's more than just child credit. There's also the earned income tax credit. There's several other credits.
That's all through
as well.
That's all through.
Right, but sometimes you get way more than just your taxes.
Yes,
back,
yes.
Right. So should there be stipulations on how that money is spent?
No, because how
is that different?
Because it is not a grant. It is basically, hey, you paid too much money here. Here's a refund. Now,
and sometimes
so my argument has always been that
it's not your money anymore.
So it's always been my argument that only fools actually allow all their money to be pulled out of their paycheck. If you should actually allow none of it to go out and then just pay at the end of the year. That way the government isn't getting more money and being able to charge interest on the money that they're collecting from you, making that interest where you can make that interest.
I mean, that's a great opinion, but that's not
those
really
options exist.
The question I asked.
So the question you asked is an asinine one, because a tax refund. Listen to the words that are being said.
No, I heard what I said, refund, but sometimes you get more than
and when you do, that is actually one of those weird loopholes that was designed to help people with lower incomes.
Okay, what about Social Security? Because you get returned to you more in Social Security per month than you paid into it as a working adult. So should they regulate how you pay you spend your Social Security money as well?
Not necessarily, because there's people like me who's been paying into Social Security since I was 15 years old.
Everyone,
and I still pay into Social Security today.
Everyone pays into it.
Yeah,
okay, but my point is that when you retire and you start collecting Social Security,
that's $1,200 a month. Yes,
depending on the age that you live to, most of the time you will collect more in Social Security than you have paid into the program. So should the government then have to fund have to determine how you spend your money?
No,
I love the idea that you can't be ideologically consistent here, because
I am being consistent.
You're really not.
How am I not consistent? I really want to hear this, because
why are you spending the time to research this and go on panels and talk about fucking poor people's food? There's nothing to research. What do you mean?
This was literally something I already understood.
Okay, so you're taking a complete moral position on this. You have no data to back up any of your positions. You're taking a complete moral position.
What data do you need to have to say the bill states this? And when you deliver grants to people, federal grants, you expected that money to be paid in a specific way. This is an opinion. This isn't like, oh, studies have said. No, this is, if you spent that much time and effort on an opinion, my God.
I guess everything is an opinion, right? When you talk on any Twitch panel ever, every single thing that you state is an opinion. No, I mean, yeah, you bring facts, facts to reference to support your opinion. That's what a fucking debate is, right? So you need to know the data. You need to know the facts, right? You need to know that there's 38 million people that are food insecure in the richest country in the world. So obviously something is not working correctly. So implementing more restrictions, clearly the current, I'm not done. Clearly the current system is not working. So imposing more restrictions or restricting in any kind of manner will create more people with food insecurity. So why do you want that?
Do you even know how much SNAP pays? I'm just asking.
Like how much it costs the government?
I have the numbers. No. How much does it pay the families?
It depends. It's a calculation based on your income.
Yes. It's based on how far below the poverty line you are, how many people are in your family.
It's also it ranges on state by state.
Yes, it does.
There's going to be different ranges for every single
state. Average ranges as of 2019 for a household family of one is about
$1,000 a year.
So it's average, my guy. I put the link.
If you make more than $12.50 an hour in the state of Montana, you cannot receive any SNAP benefits.
Okay, that's because of the poverty line. So
I'm just saying, it's a state by state issue.
I linked where I got that information.
$250 a month as the max is garbage.
My question, more so to clarify your point than anything else, Aircraft. So are you pro more restrictions on SNAP than there are now? Then.
So look, the only thing, like, I think the hot meal thing,
the authoritarian position, it's amusing.
Okay, so the no hot meal thing, I'm okay with that. Look, I know that obesity in America is a bad thing. Hey, look at me, I'm a fat fuck too.
I think you should start voting Democrat. You're taking the very, like, authoritarian position.
No, because if I had it my way, there would be no fucking welfare.
Oh, okay. So you are libertarian in a sense.
Oh, yes, I'm very libertarian.
Why are you taking the authoritarian position here?
It's not authoritarian. If
it's not to tell people how to use their benefits
for food.
Is that really the definition?
So it's
no, because I think what he's saying is,
in my opinion.
What he's saying is, like, even in like, if you're libertarian but not anarchist, you still believe that the government can serve certain functions. Yes. And technically every dollar that the government spends is them telling you how to spend your money, because they're telling you to give it to them and so they can build roads and do schools. But like, what I can get what you're saying
over something as innocuous as, oh no, I can't buy my Big Mac or my Costco $4 chicken that's already cooked. I think that's a little ridiculous, because you have your own money to actually still purchase those things. If you do not make enough money to buy your own food, I mean,
should we let them starve then? If you can't afford your own food, should you just starve and die?
What do you think SNAP is for? It's to help prevent that.
Okay, but there are a lot of people. There's clearly a lot of
with undervation. I think some people need to be motivated.
And there's proof, there's data across the world for millions of different topics that prove that negative incentives do not provide the outcome that positive incentives do. So why punish them? Say no food for you, which literally cuts off their fucking brain from thinking clearly and makes them able to make coherent decisions. Why not just give them fucking food? If they want to, if some poor person who wants to go fucking get McDonald's on their way home and they haven't gotten their paycheck yet that week and they have some money left on their fucking Snap, you really want to deny them that? For what reason other than your moral standing? Oh, you should cook. You need to learn how to cook to support yourself. Okay, maybe I know how to fucking cook, but maybe I don't. 88% of America works more than 40 hours a week. 18% of America works more than 60 hours a week. So and all the things that you've said, you never take into account anyone's time, which is arguably everyone's most valuable resource. Okay, so
okay, so it is everyone else's responsibility for you to be able to budget your deal to sustain your life. You mean
it's not everyone's responsibility?
Hold on. You have had a good chance to talk. But it is everyone else's responsibility to do something that is a basic survival fucking skill from the beginning of mankind through present. Something as basic as fucking cooking. They don't have time for it. Look, if you don't have time for it, then don't fucking do it. It's starve, get salmonella, not my problem. But to sit there and think that everyone else has to sit there and pay for your ineptitude, I think is a little ridiculous. And I'm not sorry.
Pay per year for SNAP benefits?
$62 billion, I believe.
How much do you pay?
How much do I pay for SNAP benefits?
How much do you pay for SNAP benefits every year?
Considering
You're
the amount
really
of,
you're really upset about this. So I want to know what your contribution is.
my contribution is that I'm a fucking taxpayer.
It's called
so how
like
much do you
less than
pay?
1% of your fucking
How much
check.
do you pay? How
Oh,
much
it's
of your
much less
taxes
than
are going
1%.
to that?
Doesn't
Money
matter.
every year comes out of your pocket that goes to this subject. Because
How much? Now
this?
you mentioned on panel that you actually receive EBT, right?
I do. Yes.
Okay, so should you even be able to have any input on the conversation?
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you? Because why would someone who doesn't really contribute?
You're kind of struggling here, aren't you, buddy?
No, it's a literal deal. It's one of these things that I like to talk about. Like some people should not be allowed to vote. If you don't own property, I don't think you should be allowed to vote.
That's
So,
great, but I don't really care about your opinion. I mean,
exactly.
You're not really the arbiter here who gets to decide whose opinion.
No,
matter
you're right.
and
I'm
who don't.
not. I'm not. But see, the argument
Like,
is.
well, I don't think this person should be able to vote.
The argument is.
Have an
Hold
opinion
on.
here.
Hold on.
Okay.
The
well,
argument
I don't
is.
care if you don't think
How
I should have
can
an
you
opinion
actually?
I have an opinion here. At the end.
How can you actually contribute to something when you have no ownership in it?
He does. Every single person, even if you're on EBT.
Have no ownership in what? Dude, it's okay to just say that you're a little lost in this conversation. It's okay. Like, no one's going to think worse of you. Like, maybe you can just like sit here and say to yourself that you aren't actually in this conversation. You're kind of just like running around in a circle, not making a whole lot of points, getting a little frustrated. It's okay, dude. Just take the L.
I don't know what you're talking about, my guy, because there is no L here.
You're not really making a point here. You're just being like, well, you're on EBT, so you can't really be a part of this conversation. Why?
Here, you should be part of this conversation because all you're going to do is vote for something to benefit yourself when you're not actually paying into it. If you're someone who is receiving SNAP or EBT, hold on. If you were someone who is actually if you were getting SNAP and EBT, that means that you're actually not paying any taxes. You get all your taxes back in refunds. That's something that you actually mentioned about at the beginning when I joined in. So therefore, you're not contributing. So why should you even have a voice? How do I define taxes? It's very simple.
Do you just define it as payroll taxes? Do you think about estate taxes? Do you think about property taxes? Do you think about sales taxes?
If you were collecting SNAP and EBT, you do not have
There's more than just a payroll tax.
I guarantee you do not have a freaking property tax.
Glad you focused on the one thing that I said, but I said several things. Try to explain.
Yes. So sales tax, yes, everyone pays sales tax when they buy things.
In 40 or 43 states.
Well, with the exception of people, with the exception of those who don't have sales tax in their state. But there's also cities within those states that don't have sales tax. There's also people that are like 100% disabled. They don't pay any sales tax. You're right, not everyone, but the vast majority of Americans do.
Okay, so people with certain benefits aren't allowed to have conversations around those benefits because they don't matter?
I don't really care if you have the conversation. I think it's good you're in the conversation, but I will sit there and say, should you really have that much conversation because you're not a contributor?
I have a conversation
you are just
around
a
EBT benefits because I receive EBT benefits.
I think
no. I mean, that's a really weird question to ask.
I could argue individuals.
I mean, how are you going to apply that logic elsewhere?
System. People who do not contribute to the system, should they even have a voice?
Well, no. Should prisoners be able to talk about prisoners' rights? Should people who are women be able to talk about women's rights? Should black people to be able to talk about like black rights?
You didn't get beat up by a cop? Sorry, you can't have any opinion about police brutality.
It's a really weird like application of knowledge. You're saying because I'm within a certain group,
hold on, is SNAP or EBT a right?
I can't have an opinion about that group.
Is SNAP or EBT a right?
That's not the point, dude.
It is the point. Because you're talking about rights. I'm talking about a benefit.
Tell me what my point is.
Well, no, that doesn't make sense either. Because rights, we don't vote on rights. Nobody gets a say on rights. Rights are rights. But like
rights
everybody gets a vote when it comes to
rights are intangible.
Yeah.
Okay, there is.
What I'm saying is everybody. Hold on. Everybody gets a say on legislation. It's rights. Nobody gets a say on. So it wouldn't matter if you're contributing or you're not, because nobody gets a say on those. They're rights. What he's saying is that people who receive the benefit should have just as much of a say as people who pay more money into funding the benefit, and that's how the entire structure of the United States is formed. I mean, we all get a vote, and we all get to vote in representatives who craft this legislation. I mean, I don't think either of you is going about this the right way, saying like, oh, like Cope and Seethe libertarian, or like, oh, you're just a taker. I think the point is that it's just a fundamental disagreement as to is the government is the money that the government disperses the government's money just because the government took it, or is it still our money and we should be trying to pick as much freedom out of it as we can, which
And
even though I am
that's a
really
good way to frame
libertarian,
it.
I do think that if I'm forced to give up my money to the government, then it should be treated as different than just the person's money who gets it, because it's not their money. It's partially mine. It's partially a bunch of other people's. So it should be treated kind of as the government's money, and it should be audited as such, and it should be treated as such. But my question is, it's like, the way you're arguing it, it's sort of like you either have to believe that it should just be food in general, or that there should be way more restrictions on it than there are currently, because if we never really crafted it to make it like to force people to buy the most cost effective stuff. It was
No.
just to make them buy things that offer more nutrition than typical fast food, because when it was crafted, you didn't have as substantial and cheap fast food, but now it's a lot cheaper. Even though it seems like fast food prices have gone up relative to pay, fast food, as far as like getting something substantial, has actually gotten pretty cheap.
Well, so okay, so the intent of it was for nutrition, yada yada, supplemental nutrition, and look, it's actually it's a good program, and I see no problem with expanding it to a point. I'm actually for helping fellow man, believe it or not. I throw out some shit takes here and there, but hey, here's the reality. I don't mind helping people. The problem that I have is the fact that people are pitching a fit over something as innocuous as I can't buy a Big Mac with my government money. It is a supplementary income. Not even should be considered an income. It is essentially, hey, we're helping you out. Just hey, with this money, you can only buy these things. I don't see what the big deal is. When I was on SNAP, when I was younger, when I was a military member and stuff, and I was receiving these benefits, I didn't see a problem with it. I if I really wanted to go and buy some fast food, I would just use a different pile of money. That's what it is.
But a different pile of money, like people live paycheck to paycheck. That's a very real thing.
Yes,
okay,
and
so if
those
it's
who are
3
on
days,
EBT
if it's
tend
3
to
days
live
before,
paycheck to
if
paycheck.
you're 3 days before your fucking paycheck hits and all you have is EBT money, you just worked a fucking 12-hour shift, you gotta go home for a meal for your kids. You can't just stop at the store and grab a rotisserie chicken and make them quesadillas because you're not allowed to buy hot food.
Well, I mean, life's hard.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
well,
your
I think
argument.
you can
Like
make
life's hard.
where
Sorry. Why don't
where
we
I think
fix
got-
these? Why don't we fix these issues at the root instead of squabbling over them when
But
it
it's
comes
not
to
an
giving
issue.
people money to fucking eat?
It seriously is not an issue.
Jeb, jump back in here. I want to hear what you have
Yeah,
to say.
no, I think Sparky and I are sort of on the same page, but arguing it differently. That like more intelligent limitations would be good, because I don't think, Sparky, if they told you like next year we're rolling out the ability to buy hot food at the hot deli at the grocery store just like you can the cold deli with EBT, that you would care. I think you'd be for that. But it's like more. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you if that's. But like, I think we're both looking for more intelligent limitations rather than like I'd much rather them swap the limitation on hot food with a limitation on fucking Snickers.
I would love to cut out the high fructose bullshit.
But why
mean,
do you
that's
have to
but
do
you
that to
can't
people
balance
who
it
are
by
dying for
ingredient,
food,
though.
man?
Yeah,
If they're
also-
dying for food, is one of the best things to give them is a fucking Snickers bar.
No, but why can't you? Why do you have to regulate just them? Why can't you just say
Because
why
it
can't?
is not their money.
It is
There's
their
corn
money.
syrup
We
in
signed
lot
a social
more than you think, though.
Yes, exactly.
Like a honeyed ham uses corn syrup.
Yes,
so you would
everything
not be
fucking
allowing
uses corn
people-
syrup
yeah.
because
And
we
I'm okay with
allowed
that.
fucking corporations to
It's just-
whatever the fucking word is.
Yeah, it's just an issue because then
Commodify?
Yes,
then
thank
it
you.
costs so much to micromanage that. Like you have to be constantly looking to see if products have changed their ingredient lineup to
Yeah, but
include
we're
high
spending
fructose
time
corn syrup and stuff.
micromanaging people's fucking transactions. Oh, you accidentally swiped your EBT
No,
card to
yeah,
buy
I'm
something
saying
you're
don't-
not?
No,
I'm saying
see,
we
the-
can't limit the high fructose corn syrup.
No,
'cause that doesn't
okay,
make
I
sense.
agree.
Like, it's too much.
Hey,
Well,
wait,
but
can I just establish some ground rules really quickly here? Can
Yeah.
we be talking about eliminating high fructose corn syrup if we currently eat high fructose corn syrup? Is that part of the debate rules now?
I mean, you can. I wouldn't eliminate high fructose corn syrup.
Just saying,
in
if anyone
any
on the
way.
panel actually eats high fructose corn syrup, doesn't that mean that they probably shouldn't be talking about it? Isn't that the rules
Find
now?
anyone who doesn't eat any
Yeah,
form
right.
of high fructose corn syrup.
Also,
That's
no,
the
no,
fucking
no,
number
I'm
one
just saying,
contributor
by
to
those same
obesity. So
debate rules from
I
earlier,
mean,
maybe
look,
like we shouldn't be
I'm sitting
talking about
there. I'm sitting there literally saying, whatever I spend my own money that I earn is my business. But if I'm sitting there taking money from the government, they have a little bit of say in it.
they
It's
do
not-
say, they can say, yeah, it's for food. Here, take this and go buy food. Why do you have to
but they can
restrict the
also
type of
determine what
food?
is legitimate food.
What do you mean? What
That
is
is
legitimate
actual
Well,
food?
legitimate's weird because a lot of people
No.
wouldn't consider a McDouble legitimate, but again, it's mathematically the most nutritionally dense food in the world. So it's like, what's legitimate food then? Because but you would agree, you're like, well, that's not really legitimate food
So,
though, because it's not good for you. Well, then how do you set up that rule system?
So the
know?
argument against things like the commodification of food. Let me ask you this: who produces food? Is food produced? Is it
Farmers?
cultivated? Okay.
Yeah.
Is their labor worth anything?
words.
Yeah, it's worth all the fucking government subsidies they get and the fucking pay that they get for
okay.
the food. Yep.
Okay. So you firmly believe in things like, they should be able to get a wage, but you want to decommodify foods. You actually want to make them not worth anything.
No,
You
I
think
want to put
they should be given
restrictions in
away for free.
place. I want to put restrictions in place to stop them from putting fucking toxic things in the food that we fucking
They don't.
eat. They don't.
Farmers
They don't.
deliver them to processing plants, and processing plants do that.
Okay, the farmers
that's
don't
a
put
different animal altogether.
pesticides and shit on their plants to stop bugs and animals from eating them.
Pesticides that keep that's normal. That's
Okay,
when I
but
hear
there's
people.
places
Well,
that
he's saying maybe don't make it normal.
yeah.
Okay, so
Maybe make it abnormal.
So organic farming, completely 100% organic farming does not work.
Well, no,
It doesn't
hold on.
anywhere.
That's not what I'm
that's
saying
totally
either.
different. You can make GMO crops that just don't use pesticides that are toxic to humans.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like you can find a middle ground, but you
So
be
GMOs
careful
are
about
bad.
attacking things based on what they sound like versus like trying to pick apart and find what's good in an idea. Because I think if you really try to pick apart what they're saying, we can understand that maybe it's good if people can get a hot meal of some form on EBT when they're working, single adults maybe even. And
they're
especially
working
if they
single
have
adults. They
kids.
definitely don't have an excuse.
What is
No,
that?
I mean,
no, because
I mean,
it
what
takes.
What if
Look.
I told you though that there are a lot of people right now that aren't working, like they're not moving up in their employment fast enough because they're not getting adequate sleep because they're always having to spend too much time cooking, and so they're actually staying on SNAP longer because they can't get a hot meal with it.
So let me ask you, how much time do you spend cooking a week?
I mean, I don't have that restrictive of a job, so I spend a lot of time cooking.
So when I was working 12 plus hours, 7 days a week, on the flight line, not only did I have time to cook for myself, I also had time to cook for my family. Yeah, look,
Okay,
man,
yeah,
you're gonna budget
anecdotal
time.
example
You
does not really
hold
mean
on.
shit to me.
But you can work 16 hours a day and still budget time, because if it's important enough for you, you'll do it.
You can, but what matters to me as a taxpayer is, are we keeping people on SNAP too long because we're forcing them to waste their time when they could just spend the same amount of money and get a hot meal?
Yeah,
Because I
grow
mean,
the fuck
in a lot
up.
of cases, like
That's the way I'm at. That's
Grow
where
the
I'm at
fuck
on
up.
that
That's
one.
where you're at.
Grow the fuck up. Yes,
Well,
because
like-
if you can't take enough time to cook for yourself, why should anyone be expected to help supply your food at all? Period. If you
Well, I mean, they're
can't
gonna
take,
stay
you
on the
can't be.
program
But
long.
why are you assuming that this person who can now buy hot foods on Snap is just gonna fucking buy every single meal at McDonald's and the hot food line?
They're not going to, because they don't get enough money.
Okay,
for that.
okay, you could go to the fucking grocery store and buy 5 rotisserie chickens a week and you'd be fucking set. But you can't do that because you can't buy hot food on Snap. Okay? So therefore, you are forcing this person who may cook 4 meals, they may cook 4 nights out of the week, and they just say, today, maybe I want to fucking not have to cook dinner tonight. Okay? But no, sorry, you can't fucking do that because Aircraft Sparky thinks you're too dumb to figure out how to manage your food money.
No, because SNAP is not your only source of food. If you didn't budget and all you have left is SNAP, fuck you, dude. You just
Fucking
gotta eat
starve.
ramen, dude.
Just
hate life.
Yep.
It's not a dude. It's you're acting as if SNAP is the only source of food. It isn't.
Again, when you're on a paycheck to paycheck basis and you
budget your hot.
How do you
money.
budget your money when 1 week's check is more than your like? You take 1 week's check and that it gives you nothing. People can barely. Excuse me. People can barely pay their fucking rent, their car. Okay, and then you also have people who are on SNAP because they live in food deserts. Do you know what do you know what type of community actually receives the most SNAP benefits?
I believe it's rural.
Yes, highly rural communities that are like miles away from grocery stores. And typically in these communities, you have small local grocery stores in which not everything that is at a supermarket is accessible. And around 10% of people, I think it's 10% of people don't have a car. So if you live in one of these rural areas without a car, oftentimes
if you live in a rural area without a car, you do not live in a rural area.
That's not
rural
true.
Areas rural areas do not have public transportation.
Exactly. They don't have public transportation.
To get on the trains and stuff. If they don't have a car, then they are usually dependent on someone else in order to get from point A to point B.
So they don't have ease of access to
the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people who live in rural areas, you're literally talking about, if they even exist, we're talking about an extreme minority.
EBT. People on EBT are an extreme minority.
Well, yeah, rural areas.
Actually, yes.
Some of the heaviest recipients of welfare programs. That's one of the big things that Barack Obama was considered to have missed when he was making policy, was he wasn't catering welfare programs toward most of the people who were taking them up. So I wouldn't say that they're a vast minority out there.
No, I'm saying people who don't have cars in rural areas are kind of a vast minority. It's not if you live in those areas, you have to have some form of transportation just to do anything.
I guess.
So it's look, I live in a metropolitan area. I live in OKC, and we have some of the worst freaking public transportation options in any of the major cities in America, because there is none. It's non-existent. We have a small
in California.
Yeah, we have a small busing system, but it's just terrible. My goodness. California and I think San Diego doesn't have a very good public transportation. I don't know about LA, and I haven't spent much time in
I'm in between LA and San Diego. They're all pretty trash. It's because we're kind of limited to above ground transport because of the water table being so high. That's definitely not. A lot of people say it's like, oh, it's an issue of investment. It's super not. It's just like, there's number one, the traffic, especially around like LA area, is terrible.
Oh, dude, it's disgusting.
And so the bus systems are never on time, and so nobody uses them because they know that they'll be late. Same thing even in Riverside, which is like a really shitty, not as populated part right next to LA. Even their buses can't stay on time because of the traffic.
Yeah. The areas that don't have public transportation, metropolitans, I mean, if you don't have a vehicle, man, it's a bad time. Most people will drive around in we call them beaters.
Yeah.
But just pieces of shit, man. It just barely gets them to point A to point B. And I've lived that life. It's not fun, but I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you gotta suffer through. Sometimes you gotta make a little sacrifice, and it's not that big of a deal